Hi, my name is Amber and I'm diagnosed with bipolar disorder type 1 and I'm also in the social work field, and I just wanted to talk about self-esteem and bipolar disorder. So many times we're misdiagnosed for years before getting the proper diagnosis of bipolar disorder. And so once we become diagnosed, it's like a whole new world. We're finally like, maybe we can take that fresh breath of air and be like, finally. But other times we could be like, oh my gosh, this is a death sentence. Like, where am I going to go in life with this diagnosis, right? But let's backtrack, right? So when we're misdiagnosed for so long, we start to think that we're bad people. Like, man, am I just a bad person? Like, I made these decisions and it hurt other people. I became rageful and I said the most prolific things to somebody else. And I've hurt those friendships. I've hurt family members, right? Or these people won't talk to me anymore, right? Right? And the thing is, it's not all us. It is a part of our diagnosis. And when we can't understand what our diagnosis is, when we can't understand how to treat that diagnosis properly, it makes it difficult to actually start to make progress towards healing, right? And so if I have bipolar disorder and I think I have major depressive disorder and I'm taking antidepressants, going to therapy, and I'm like, thinking, oh man, I'm hyped up now, right? Because I get a high, right, from the antidepressants. Since I have bipolar disorder, it can make you manic or hypomanic. And I'll start thinking irrationally, illogically, make decisions maybe on a fly without even thinking about them thoroughly, like how I usually would be able to if I was euthymic, which means when I'm stable. Right? And so even before being diagnosed, like, you start to think, am I just a bad person, right? And so we start to gain that narrative, that internal monologue. I'm a bad person. Nobody likes me. Why doesn't anyone like me? Why am I so different? Right? Because that's something that goes through my head even now, because years and years and years of thinking that before I was properly diagnosed has affected me today. And so I have to actually be intentional with cutting off those thoughts, because I'm like, I'm a bad person. Like, let's say I'm in a depressive episode, I'll start crying and think I'm a bad person, and I'll start going in a deep hole to where I feel like I'm a burden to others, and it's not okay, right? And so when we are circling constantly in our head, like, oh, I'm a bad person, I'm a bad person, I'm a bad person, right? We create a neural pathway in our heads, the path of least resistance. So even when we're in a euthymic stage, which is a period of stability, we start to believe that about ourselves, and we start to internalize that about ourselves. And so then we struggle with self-esteem, and we might feel like, why don't I love myself? Well, because we don't give ourselves grace. Just like anyone else who is sick, we would give them grace, right? But we should also be giving ourselves grace. And then when we are in a manic episode, it is hard to think rationally about what we are to do. And so when we make those decisions, we may make them in confidence, but they might not be actual confidence in what we would decide if we were in our stable euthymic state of mind, right? And so how do we mitigate that? What we do is we do get treatment, do take that medication, do go to therapy, right? Because we start to learn ourselves. And I think the key aspect is learning ourselves when we've been dealing with trauma, because this illness is traumatic. And even so, I feel like many people have a sense of trauma in their lives that has occurred to them when we're so used to being in survival mode, because especially when you're misdiagnosed, you're in survival mode because you don't know what's going on with you. We're so used to survival mode that we forget to live, we forget to be who we are, we forget who we are, right? And so that's something to work on, and that's something I'm starting to discover within myself. When I was in the Marine Corps, I used to be ridiculed for having a mental illness, for getting help for the mental illness, and I was told to be quiet about it because I was a non-commissioned officer, and so they didn't want their junior Marines to be tainted by my mental illness, right? But that's not how it works, right? You don't separate somebody with a mental illness from everyone else thinking, oh, everyone else is going to get affected, right? You don't do that. And plus, you need that support. That's another way. You need social support. It might be difficult, but the people that truly love you and care about you will be there for you. And so part of that is understanding the illness, and a part of understanding where you have to be intentional with treatment, where you have to make those strides in your healing, because I can't just go and treat somebody some type of way and expect them to be okay with it, right? So I have to make that effort. I have to make sure I take my medication, make sure I go to therapy, or do some form of self-care and taking care of me and learning me to start to raise my self-esteem. Because when we sit with that inner monologue, if I'm a bad person, I'll never amount to anything, right? It goes down deep south real easily. It goes to I'm a burden and feeling like people would be better off without me, and it's really difficult to live with, to have those inner thoughts. And so if we constantly go back to that inner monologue, because path of least resistance, it starts to decline our love for ourselves. And so I just wanted to come on here to say that we have to be mindful about how we speak to ourselves and what we say to ourselves, because that is so powerful and we don't even realize it all the time. And yeah, so I just wanted to come on here with that. And I just want to say to love yourself, because it is normal to have human emotions. It is normal to live this life and make the wrong choices, because we won't always be right. We won't always make the right decisions, and that's okay. And we don't always have to hurt ourselves by feeding ourselves a negative inner monologue, because, give yourself some grace. You fall down, you can get back up again. You can get back up again, and you can follow your dreams, and you can succeed in life. So just be more mindful about how you talk to yourself, because this illness is already hard enough, so why make it even harder?